My name is Andres. We got Craig here answering questions. We're at the Baking Steel Studio in Grand Rapids, Michigan, baking pizza. And if you're gonna follow this, if you're watching this on YouTube afterwards, make sure, this goes for everybody here, to like our and follow us, because you'll get really good updates. We're gonna do some lives on YouTube, etc. And we hope you like this video. Comment and tell us what you'd like to see. Making a pizza. I'm gonna take you through the steps that we do to make legendary pizza at home. And if you were with us last week, we made our dough, 72-hour dough, fermented. This morning, I came in the studio, I removed the dough from the fridge, and I made my dough balls probably about 8 a.m., 7:30 to 8 a.m. I made 2 dough balls. So these, and I put them back in my dough container here. Shout out to these dough containers. And they've been proofing, so they're covered. And they've been like resting for literally 4 or 5 hours. The aroma is amazing. Can you smell that? What I'm gonna do is make my pizza. I'm gonna show you everything that I do. I have my mise en place here. I've got my sauce, my flour, my cheeses. Excuse me, my cheese. I've got some shredded fontina and shredded mozzarella. It's hard to see. I'll show you this. I shredded it, and it's been sitting in the fridge on a plate, so it's very cold the last few minutes. I got some parm right here. I've got some crushed tomatoes, some fresh basil, and of course my dough. I also have some semolina flour and flour to use as like my table, and I use this as my just to kind of put my dough into the semolina flour here. I'm going to make the pizza, show you everything that I do. All right, find this a little closer so you can see a little better. So this is semolina flour. I'm gonna put some regular flour down as well and just kind of mix it up. Combination. I'm gonna take my dough and just place it right in the middle. And now what I'm gonna do is just kind of turn over both sides. Okay, so it doesn't get sticky. And I'm gonna lightly just kind of press this out. And as you can see, it's still, you know, it's a tiny bit cold. It's probably not proofed exactly how I want, but it's pretty close. So it's going to stretch. The glutens in this dough are nice and relaxed now. It's not going to take a lot of effort to get this thing to, you know, 10 to 12 inches if I'd like, right? I'm just like lightly pressing. Some people work around the edge like this and kind of keep that, that crust more apparent. I kind of press the entire thing down. Again, that's a personal preference. And you can notice I'm picking it up and moving it just so I know it won't get stuck to the counter. And these counters are just some quartz, like a granite. So, you know, it's room temperature, which is nice. And you can see these air bubbles that are forming in the dough, which is nice, right? And I'm not being super firm. I'm being a little gentle with the dough. When it gets to be about 5 or 6 inches, there's a few different ways of doing this. I can just now pick it up and put it on the back of my knuckles. I'm gonna move this camera up just a little bit so you can see what I'm doing. So I pick it up, okay? And now I'm working, keep my knuckles inside of it so it doesn't puncture the dough. I'm just giving it a little stretch and then I'm turning. I give a little stretch. I'm being very, very patient. I don't wanna go too fast. I'm letting gravity really do all the work here. And I'm just kind of continue to turn. You'd see it's slowly starting to, you know, get bigger. I'm giving a little bit of a tug. Also, you can see a little stretch as I turn. So I'm gonna get a little stretch and I turn. I try to move consistently so the dough will, you know, stretch consistently. And you can see it's starting to form. You know, 1, it's round, but 2, it's starting to be, it's probably about 6 or 7 inches now in size. Go backwards here, right? Go a little bit larger. So I kind of give it as it's starting to grow. Gravity is doing all the work. This dough is pictured like it just did a nice yoga class. So it's gluten. The gluten network is kind of relaxed, not stiff. It's not snapping back on me. I do this, you know, again, I'm not in any rush. It's kind of nice and chill. And now if I place this down, I've got probably a nice 10-inch size pizza here, which is just about where I want it. I might go a little bit bigger, But now the most important, the most important thing we're going to learn today is this peel. I like wood because it absorbs some of the moisture. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to lightly dust it. I'm going to take some of this flour that I use from the stretching and just place on my peel and lightly dust it onto my peel. Think of those as my ball bearings. I'm going to place my dough on top of the ball bearings, right? And before I do anything else, I'm going to make sure this dough, I'm going to give it a little jiggle. See how it's sliding like a hockey puck? It's loose. You can see that. If it gets any of that portion dough gets stuck, I'm going to stick some semolina flour underneath it to start to loosen it up again. Again, that's the most important thing I'm going to do all day today is make sure this dough does not stick to my peel. So give it a slide. Now, I'm going to move some of this flour out of the way here. Now it's almost to the size where I want it. I might give this a few more little like stretches before I start topping it. So again, stretch, right? I'm not worried about my cheese or my toppings yet. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to kind of pinch these edges a little bit. This is just like my signature to my dough. I'm just kind of giving it a little stretch. I'm adding a little texture to my bites, if you will. Some crevices, some valleys, right? Makes it really unique. You can see that? Really cool looking dough. And that's about 10 inches, one more little stretch. Now, before I do sauce, before I do cheese, I'll make sure this thing's jiggling again. If it's not, just take a deep breath. You got this, okay? But I'm gonna pause again. I can't stress how important this part is. Before I do sauce, before I do cheese, this dough needs to slide. So I've got to give it a jiggle. And again, if it gets stuck, this is the time to fix it, not when it's loaded up with toppings, okay? So, and especially not before I load it into my oven. So again, stretch it, lube it up, make sure it's sliding like a puck, okay? And next, I'm gonna top. So I'll show you how I do that, boom. So there's my dough, looks amazing, right? It's still gonna slide. And the more I do this, it becomes intuitive. I'm going to take my sauce, which is just crushed tomatoes and sea salt. Okay. I'm just going to lightly spread it around. And now I don't want to go over the edge. Just like life, I don't want to bring the sauce over the edge, but I want to live to the edge, if you will. Right. And now I'll give it a little more pinch again. Now, if I do spill some sauce, let's say I spilled a little sauce on my peel, right? I want to have my dough avoid that. So what I'm going to do is grab like something to kind of get it off of there. And now what I'll do is I'll put some more semolina on that wet spot just so my ball bearings, this dough can still slide. So watch, I'll make sure my dough slides, right? It's still sliding. You can see me doing it like so easy that moves. That's really critical. And now let's top. So for me, I'm making a basic cheese pizza, probably my favorite here. I throw a little bit of Parmesan down first, right? If you want, it's like if you want to use some like oregano or crushed red pepper, now's the time to do it. Dried herbs tend to burn, so I bury it underneath sauce or the cheese, I should say. Now for my cheese, shredded it. I got a combination of fresh mozzarella and fontina. And if you've been following us enough, you know that we shred our own cheese. I'll pause for that, but it's really not a ton of cheese, just a little bit, right? Maybe a little bit more. You guys think more? I always say, you know, less is more on top. More is more. What do you think, basil, chef? Should I go early? Go early on it? Let's go early on the basil. So I'm going to put some basil down early, which means I'm going to cook it. All right. I like odd numbers. I'm using 5 basil leaves, the thing. And then I'm just going to drizzle a little of olive oil on top. Right? Just a little bit. My pizza's done. So before I go near the oven, okay, which actually I'm going to go to my oven and switch my oven to broil. So I go broil high. My oven's been preheating with my baking steel for the last hour at 450 degrees. I switched my oven over to broil. The reason is I want that radiant heat now to get my oven, that's baking steel, which is on the top rack, really hot. So once that broiler kicks on, I'm gonna launch this pizza. And remember, now to launch this dough, I want to make sure it's critical. I give it a little jiggle before I go into the oven. My dough is still sliding. I don't know if you can see that sliding. It's still sliding really well. I have my ball bearings all set on there, and it's ready to kind of rip inside the oven. Once that broiler kicks in, I'm launching. Back of the peel to the back of the steel, and I just kind of lightly, gingerly peel it off. And I'm going to give you guys a close-up to what I'm doing here. That's my oven, okay? So my broiler, I'm gonna say, is on right now. I'm gonna move my rack back down. Here's my steel. Block that. Back of the peel to the back of the steel, just kind of lightly jiggle like that. Close her up. Now the important thing is I want to put a timer on for 2 minutes. All right, I'm gonna take a peek inside, guys. In fact, let me show you what I'm doing, my peek inside, so you can see. And you can see, I'm starting to get some color around, but you can see it's really getting puffy, right? It's getting a little color. I'm gonna actually turn this. I'm gonna turn my broiler off and cook this for another 90 seconds or 2 minutes, because I'm afraid of getting too dark on top there. So here, I go back to convection. Multi-rack here. I'll go back to 500 degrees for 2 more minutes, and our pizza will be done. Almost like perfection. It looks unbelievable. So I'm gonna pull this out. Boom. That's literally like a 4-minute pizza. And see the colors on top, right? Isn't that gorgeous? Let me go with this. I can see it better. Isn't that beautiful? Right? I've got a little char. The bottom is going to be cooked really nice. I could probably go another 30 seconds, but I told you I'm going to kind of cook this again in about a little bit later for dinner. It's beautiful. At this point in the game, I could add some fresh basil to finish it. And this is a dealer's choice here. You don't have to, but add some nice color to it, add some vibrancy, right? I could even drop a little bit more cheese on top, right? There's our beautiful pie. Isn't that gorgeous? Oh, I can't wait to eat it. All right. Awesome, guys. So anyway, that's our pizza. Boom. Time to eat. Manja.